I'll be doing something ordinary, and suddenly I feel everything again. The loss, the memories, the love, the pain, it all overlaps. There's something about not having that covering, not having your father, that makes you feel so exposed. If my mom was here, I tell her most of it didn't work. It didn't work. But I learned new things and I got new courage. Somebody once told me that when your parents die, there's a covering that goes, and he wasn't even a spiritual person.
This is the Unapologetic mic, where unspoken words finally find a voice. No scripts, no filters, no judgment. Speak your truth, own your story.
Dear Dad, some bosses change you quietly, and others change the entire direction of your life. Losing you did both. I lost you when I was 19 years old. At that time, I was 4 months pregnant, which made that period of my life to be more overwhelming. Your death was
sudden. You collapsed while taking porridge that you had made for yourself that morning. And you know the strange thing about life? The same hospital that confirmed my pregnancy is the same hospital that broke the news of your death. I've always thought about how surreal that is. In one moment, it was a place announcing the beginning of a new life, and in another, it was the place where I learned that a life I loved so much had ended. Two completely different moments, yet tied to the same place. One of the last moments I remember so clearly is you touching my hair. At that time, my hair was purple, and you looked at me and said, "Umemaliza kushukwa?" It was such a small moment, but it stayed with me. Sometimes the simplest memories become the ones we hold on to the most. You are the kind of person who understood me deeply. Even when I tried to hide my feelings, you could always see through me. You would look straight into my eyes and say, "Someone has really hurt you so badly. You can try to hide it all you want, but your eyes betray you. You just knew." You also had this way of making sure I didn't isolate myself from life. If I told you I had gotten a job somewhere, you would sometimes say, "Okay, how much do you need in order to quit?" It sounds funny now, but it was your way of telling me that I didn't have to stay anywhere that made me unhappy. Sometimes when I'd lock myself in my room and shut the world out, you'd randomly send me money and say, "Go out with your friends." You wanted me to live, to experience life, not just stay stuck in my own thoughts. Losing you was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. For a long time, I avoided certain places, like restaurants we used to go to together, because they reminded me too much of you. Even now, certain things still affect me deeply. Sometimes when I hear the words blood pressure, I freeze for a moment. It takes me right back to that day. Something people don't talk about enough is delayed grief. Sometimes you think you're okay and you've managed to keep moving forward, and then one day it catches up with you. Your body can completely shut down when you least expect it. All it takes is something small, maybe a place, a word, or a simple activity, and suddenly the memories and emotions come rushing back all at once. For me, it sometimes happens in the quietest moments. I'll be doing something ordinary, and suddenly I feel everything again. The loss, the memories, the love, the pain, it all overlaps. But over time, something changed in me. Your death, as painful and cruel as it was, pushed me out of my comfort zone. In many ways, it prepared me for the reality that life can change in an instant. It taught me that people we love can leave unexpectedly. And because of that, I found myself always trying to be emotionally prepared for those moments. I also found my way back to things I loved before. I started writing poems again and reading more. In a strange way, grief pushed me to reconnect with parts of myself that I had forgotten. 3 years later, I've plaited the same hairstyle I had the day you touched my hair. It was my way of remembering you. One of the things that hurts me the most is that you never got the chance to meet my son. I often imagine that the moment would have looked like, how proud you'd have been, how you would have held him. Growing up, you are always the one who admitted me to school. Every new chapter of my education, you are there. It was almost a tradition for us. But when it came to campus, that was the one moment you missed. And sometimes that realization still breaks my heart. And even though you never got the chance to meet my son, I see in him every day. He embodies your character in so many ways, his kindness, his curiosity, his stubborn little ways, and it melts my heart. Watching him reminds me so vividly of you. And in many ways, it feels like you're still here, living on through him. He really is your replica. Even though you're gone, the way you saw me, understood me, and encouraged me to live freely still stays with me. And in many ways, that continues to shape the person I'm becoming today. Love, your daughter. My dad has been dead 19 years ago, this past March. And I wish I could tell you it gets better. I think it gets worse as you grow older. Because now, every day reminds you of how much you miss your dad. And if your dad was your friend, and for a girl who's a daddy's girl, it's the most heartbreaking thing. I never thought my father could die. My father had been ill for long, and he always got out of it. So, I mean, he was Superman. And so even when the doctors said things, they just didn't hit because it's my dad and he's larger than life. And because of that, I didn't really see his suffering. I would sit with him and we'd talk, but I didn't see the suffering. I think that breaks my heart. I've often said I've only seen my father cry 3 times. This day he came in with a newspaper and I was sitting there in the bed with nothing to show. And I sat there and he walked in and looked at me. And tears just ran down his face. And I had not cried really. And that's when I realized, oh, you mean this is serious? If my dad is crying, it must be serious. And I must have been 25 or just turning 25. And then he says, because my father would not call me by my name. And he had a newspaper. I said, Mama, I brought you the newspaper. And I knew that he was hurt. The next time we were seated, he was sick, and we were just talking about everything and nothing, because we always had those conversations. And my father loved rumba. So rumba was playing, and I started, like humming the song. And he was like, Mama, you know that song? I'm like, how can I not know it? I mean, we've lived all our lives listening to this. And tears came down his face. And he reached down to the coffee table and got a newspaper and said, read this newspaper. And that's how I knew something had touched him, and he was, of course, trying to move the attention from himself and from his emotion. Having kids without your dad, and you are a daddy's girl, I think is one of the hardest things you'll have to do. Because you are so proud of these things, these two little things, and you want to show your dad, who was also so proud of you, and you don't get that opportunity. And it feels like it was taken away from you unfairly. And then when you have a son, and that son reminds you of your dad, it's another thing. So I feel for this lady and her grandson, her father's grandson, because he will really miss his grandfather through the eyes of and through the words of his mother. But what I've also appreciated in this grief is I have learned to humanize my father. I have learned to see him in death, and I think I have known him even better in death. And so death is not the end. There's still so much more you will learn about your father, and you learn about him through everything from the places you experienced together, the books he read, his friends, family, believe it even if they are supportive or not, yourself and your children, even though they did not meet their grandfather. I think that's the small thing that grief gives you, that you still, because now you're consciously looking at your dad and you're learning about him and you're connecting to him. So I think if there's a gift grief gives, that would be it. And so lean into it, and don't tire, because that's how we keep them alive. That's eternal life, really. Eternal life is the stories. Eternal life is speaking their names. It's every time you tell that story, every time your son will tell that story. And that your son will tell that story to his siblings, to his kids, and they will live on forever. But there's nothing like missing your father. Somebody once told me that when your parents die, there's a covering that goes, and he wasn't even a spiritual person. They just said there's something about not having that covering, not having your father, that makes you feel so exposed. And for women, young women who've lost their fathers, don't look for your father elsewhere, because usually that's where you expose yourself, because now you're exposed. It's the truth. When you go looking for him amongst the living, then you expose yourself. So even as much as you feel open to the elements, you must lean on the lessons. You must lean on the memories. And I always feel that they fight so hard to help us, even where it is that they are. And you will feel it in the quietness, and you feel it in the wind, you feel it in the music, you feel it in words. So for this lady, you keep holding on. And knowing that there are no words that will make you feel better. So I'm not going to say it gets better. It doesn't. It doesn't. It keeps getting worse. And even one day when you're an old woman, I'm not yet that old, I'm 47. And there are days you'll still wake up and cry like they just left. And the sadness will always be there in everything, even in happy moments. And that's the gift, another gift grief gives that is not happy one. That every time there'll be a sadness in your life, even in happy moments, and more so in happy moments. You're graduating, you've got this child, you've got a promotion, you're traveling, and you're just happy, maybe even just. There will always be that sadness. But we are better people for knowing them, and that the powers that be chose them to be in our lives. I don't think we give fathers a lot of credit until they are gone. I think that's the saddest part. And especially good fathers, strong fathers, present fathers, because we take it for granted until they're not there. So I'd say, hold on. Thank you for sharing your letter. Thank you for taking me back to some corners that I'd not remembered in a while. Okay, my grief journey. You know, there's a time my cousins and I used to make fun that we are funeral consultants, because there's a time we buried so many people and they just fell. And there's a saying where I come from that the ground is wicked. It keeps swallowing people. And it made sense then. The ground was so wicked. And we buried so many people and we were so young. And grief became a part of our lives. And we'd laugh until we cry because it was such a present part. When I lost my mother died before my father did. One thing that stuck out for me the day we went to bury my mother is that the sun was shining, the sky was blue, and we were on our way to give this ground its due. And across the road, going the opposite direction, was a wedding procession. And I realized that life goes on, and that's it. Your world can be ending, but life goes on. And then when I had a stillborn, I remember laboring for almost 12 hours and calling my mother by her names. Because I didn't believe that they could put me through this again. And you know, the way you pray and ask for mercy and ask for strength, you ask for everything. But life just has to be life, and life just lives. And when my father went, I wanted to die. And at that point, I was done. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to lie down and I hope I don't wake up. But I woke up. And I kept waking up. And I woke up and life went on. And I many times I yelled prayers, but life just went on. And things that happened, and things that were supposed to happen, happened. And you know, you go through it for so long until you think that you're okay. Okay, anyway, this is life I've accepted. I'm moving on. And then I turned 46. My mother died at 46. And then that was a new level of grief because now I have no reference for motherhood, because all this time I was relying on, you know, how my mother mothered me. I was 22 when my mother died, and I was pregnant with my firstborn. And my firstborn was born 2 months after my mother died. So I leaned so much on what motherhood was, on what womanhood was. And that was my reference. So how I raised my kids was how I was raised. How I saw my mother, behave, carry herself around as a woman, even sometimes when I didn't always agree with it, at least I had a reference and even something to disagree with. Yeah. But then now one day I woke up and I was 46 and that was it. I didn't have anything else. I didn't have pictures. And that for me, I think is when I really lost my mother. Because now it's nothing. And I have to figure out this next part of my life, knowing that I'm also a blueprint for my own children. And that has been hard for me to figure out. I still have my dad. My dad died when he was 51, so I still have some years. And for me, the hardest thing with grief for me has been getting a space to really grieve without being told it's too much. It's been a while. You have younger siblings. You have children. Move on. Get in a better place. Just feeling lost. And I wonder if it ends. And sometimes I talk to them and ask, how can you sit down quietly and I'm suffering? If I'm suffering that time, or if I'm going through, or if I'm sad, and I just wonder, how can you be quiet? And grief has made me such a friend to death that I know I can be a bit morbid sometimes. And I've tried so hard to make it, to answer my children's questions and make them so comfortable with it. And I think I've done such a great job that it's become scary. Because there's a time one of my children said, if mom dies, I'm taking her laptop. Like as if it was. So I think I've done a pretty good job with making them comfortable with grief and death. But it's something that I carry so heavily and I don't know where to put it down or how to put it down. Or if I can put it down. But my story with grief is ongoing. It's ongoing. And sometimes I blame my parents because they lived like they were never going to die. They gave me freedoms like they were never going anywhere. So I always felt like I could do anything. If it didn't work, I'd go home. I think one of my favorite stories is always going home to my father to say it didn't work after he told me don't do this. And I was always doing something. I'd wake up in the morning. I wanted to go for tuitions because those days when we were in lower primary, you went to school, went back home, I think at 12:45. So he said, I want to go for tuitions. I must go. Everybody's going. How can I not go? So he said, but tuitions people are studying. I'm like, yeah, I want to study. So he bought me my books, paid for the tuitions, and I thought people are having fun until 3:45. Kumbe, they were really studying. And after 2 days, I was like, I don't think I want this thing anymore. And it's like, okay. But I told you, I'm like, yeah, I don't want it. He was like, okay, let's move on. I would wake up one day in the morning, I want to go to boarding school. Like, no, you don't need to go to boarding. My parents were against boarding school. They did boarding school from when they were young, so they were against it. So I mean, I'm going to high school. I want to go to boarding school, and my father is opposed, and it's like, no boarding school. And I'm like, I'm going. If you don't let me go, I'm going. So he says, okay, go. I go, and after one time, I'm almost dying. Like, I mean, this is this hard. You can't eat when you want, you can't sleep when you want. And then, of course, I go back and say, I don't want this thing anymore. And they'll be like, yeah, I told you, but anyway, it's okay. Let's get you a day school. So he was always righting my wrongs. And those are just few. Like, everything I did, I knew I could go back home and say, Nani, I know I wanted it, but it's not working. And the last time I made a mistake that he wasn't there to correct, I was actually getting married. And my father was like, no, you can't marry this one. It's not even about marrying. It's this man. You can't. I don't want this man. I'm like, no. If you don't allow me, I'm going to go. I love him. And I'm all of 22. If it's not this one, I don't know. So we get to the church, and at the entrance of the church, we're about to walk down the aisle, and my father says, Mama, you don't have to do this. You can still change your mind. And I'm like, if you don't take me down, I'll go by myself. But anyway, I do it. And then this time when it doesn't work, I couldn't go back home and say, it didn't work. So that again unlocked another point of grief for me. So sometimes I feel like they allowed me so much. And then you come out in the world thinking the world is like that. And the world is not your mother. And then it shows you. So I'd say my journey with grief is ongoing. I'm slowly accepting it that doesn't end. Every day will unlock something new. But I think I'm getting to the point of acceptance. Like it's my thing that I carry. And it makes me, I feel it makes me a better person. I'm more empathetic. And especially with people who've lost their parents. And it can be to a fault sometimes, yeah. But because I feel it, I understand it, I want to cover everybody like a mother hen. But it also makes me do things urgently because I know any time could be my last time. There's a saying, remember that you can die, that you will die. Is it remember that you can die or that you will die? And so I live fully with death close. So everything I do, I don't wait for another time. If it's talking to my children about something, I talk to them about it. Then I try to write as much for them. But everything I do with death. I'm very conscious of death. And I'm very conscious that I will live with nothing. Looking at my parents, looking down at my parents in those boxes and knowing they couldn't carry anything. My mother loved white handkerchiefs, embroidered handkerchiefs, but she couldn't even take a handkerchief. So I'm not easily impressed by physical things. I mean, I like it for you and I like it for myself if I get something, but it will not move me to the extent of worshipping or it's hard to get my admiration. Yeah. And that makes me live again more authentically. Because if I like you not because of what you have or what I think you have, but for the present. Yeah, so it's me and the grief. If my mom was here, I tell her most of it didn't work. It didn't work. But I learned new things and I got new courage. And I'd want to hug her because I grieve the life she lived. Because I know it could have been better had she known better. So I tell her I understand a lot, even when I know when I was younger, I gave her a lot of grief because I thought she was too soft, she was too understanding, she was too forgiving. I get it. I would still push her not to be soft, forgiving, and understanding, but I'd do it differently. And for my baby, I feel like she came back in one other child. I wouldn't say that child, but she came back. And I know and I understand. For my dad, I'd say that you are right. Yeah. I'd say that I understand you. It makes sense how you lived your life. I didn't agree with it also always. I tried running away from that life or from that character, but I was always running away from myself because I'm my father's child. And I've embraced it. And I've tweaked it a bit. And I'm using everything that I learned from him, good and bad, to make things different. Yeah. And I'm a better person for it. I'm more courageous. I wear my being prouder because of him. Yes. Last words to people who are grieving: just don't fight it. It's like a pool, swimming. If you keep fighting the water, you drown. So don't fight it. Just move with it. Just float. And it's not going to be comfortable. So don't seek comfort. Just go through it. Don't seek numbing. Don't numb it with anything, with alcohol, whatever substance, or even prayer or spirituality. It's part of life, and it will go on. And because life, as somebody said, if you want to know you're alive, it's up, down, up, down. Yeah, one day you'll be up, and that time when you're up, cherish the up because down is coming. And when you're down, learn what you can learn from down because up is coming. Yeah.